also I don't want the things that I say in my videos to be representative of who I am, because that's not necessarily true. I'll say things for the purposes of a joke, but they're not
Yeah.
my honest gospel truth, and that's something that's really difficult these days, especially with the kind of the cancel culture and the way that social media works. Is like everything you say will be in stone forever, and you can't recover from it. And it's a nightmare. It's like I'm just trying to make humorous content, so sometimes I'll bend the truth or say something that's not necessarily correct, or you know but it's just for the purposes of entertainment. I'm not writing a fucking textbook.
Yeah. So, because you even just touched on there as well as the, like, are you worried about how, like, even like your YouTube could even affect your sort of future or like your professional life as well, sort of like being associated to. So even though it's not necessarily like explicitly bad or anything like that, but do you ever have that worry about like being connected in that sort of regard?
um I guess to a certain degree, but I think that's just like a normal, yeah, it's just a fear that everyone kind of has, I guess. But I
Mm.
think it, there's some ideas for videos that I have that I'd really like to do, but they would require me appearing in them, just because the logistically it just wouldn't make any sense for me to not. um and so they're just kind of things I'm holding on to, and I'll eventually get around to making. um but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I think generally I feel like I'm I feel like I'm a liberal enough of a person to not get attacked by
Yeah.
the mentalists, but
Well, I think that's a great segue. I think that's an amazing segue to something I wanted to talk about. Because, yes,
yeah.
like, both you and I probably liberal enough that we're not going to have cancel culture. But what we might have is people coming in and calling us, what was the right word? What was the description that was used? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Uh, Come on, hop up. Let's just say people, especially from like alt right extremist circles, have you had any much of that in dealing with? Because I recently had my first encounter with
Oh dear.
with alt right uh, comments through the podcast. Um,
Oh.
yeah, uh, basically, it was great. What was it? What somebody said like when people like Ryan and Snacks complain about who whites and prejudice. What they're really up to is making a downward social comparison between themselves and the rest of society in order to increase their sense of social status via unearned moral superiority. Like,
Oh, Jesus Christ. The thing is, like, I think just fucking take a chill, man. Things aren't that deep at all. It's like when I was in it was like my English literature class in college. We had a famous poet come in to read some of his new work. I can't remember who it is, and I'm terribly sorry that I don't remember because I don't care. But for the purposes of the story, it doesn't matter. He was just a famous poet,
yeah,
and he'd come in to read some of his new work and do a Q&A with the class. And we'd spent all year like kind of like analyzing stuff and learning how to analyze stuff. And so, college kids been learning. We think we know fucking everything. We think we're so smart.
yeah,
And this like poet comes in, reads this shit, does a Q&A, and some kid puts his hand up and he's like, in your poem, blah blah blah, I really love the fact that you've used the color blue to demonstrate the blah blah blah, and just went off on this fucking like poncy tangent about like this breakdown of this one line of poetry that the guy had written. And the poet was just looking so confused at this kid, and then afterwards was like, did your tutor like tell you this? And he was like, no, 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 it's just we've been doing a lot of analysis and breaking stuff down. He was like, mate, like I didn't even think that for a second. No. It
yeah,
was like, I literally just made it blue because I wanted it to be blue. There's nothing deeper to it than that.
yeah. Well,
And I think there's a lot of the reason I've told that really crap story
no,
is
it's
that
not
there's a
crap.
lot of over analyzing going on everywhere, and people think that they're just this amazing socio philosopher. And it's like, fucking chill out, man. I'm a talking pizza on the internet. Like, you
Yeah.
don't need to get so pressed about, not like, fuck off. We're talking about films. We're not talking about politics or race or like, just leave. Stop.
Yeah. I
It's exhausting.
I get what you mean. Like, just like even going through this, like, because as a comment thread, I couldn't help. I had a little bit of a chat with them because it's great because it's like a lot of sort of like alt right people especially, uh,
Mm.
have anime, like this weird anime obsession.
Okay.
And both these people had like heavy anime profiles. I thought this was great, but like they're like going in and talking about like juice, like bracket juice, like obviously inference like with the Jews and stuff like that. I'm like, where is this coming from? But it's even interesting there about like how you're talking with the story. It's just like that how people derive like this like high like level of like theory and analysis from different things. And it just reminded
Yeah.
me of a video that I watched. It was by the director of Shazam. Have you seen that? His
I've
analysis?
seen Shazam. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, the director did an analysis of Shazam and as a video on his own personal YouTube channel. And it is his
Yeah.
channel is absolutely fascinating because it like breaks down like his like fairly large productions and like different shots from it and like how he's done this and that. And he's just like gone through and like shown like major like errors in the film and then being like, this is why this happened.
Oh, I've seen some of those. I've seen some of those.
Yeah.
He
And
was talking about why they made the kids put their coats on
yeah.
in a certain scene just because of the production schedule. It had absolutely nothing to do with the story, or he wasn't implying anything, or there was no artistic reason for it whatsoever. It was literally like, oh, we didn't have the girl to film that day, so we made the kids put their coats on in the previous scene, so it made sense in the following scene when they were wearing them.
Yeah. And it's just like all
Uh,
and then people are like, wow, it's obvious that she was too slow to take off her shoes and stuff like that. It's because she later became fast. You know, it's like
yeah,
this.
yeah, oh, fucking hell. That's the thing. Like people, you can prove, well, you can't prove, but you can argue any point that you want,
Yeah.
and you can try and derive some kind of evidence from things that people are saying, and it's just bullshit. It's all just bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's just so irritating because I'm not trying to make a political statement. I have no political influence whatsoever. Like, what I say is so inconsequential to anything. Yet people want to break it down and analyze it and try and say X, Y, and Z about who I am as a person. And it's like, you don't even know what I look like, you fucking cunt. So,
Yeah.
how? Why are you making these assumptions of me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's.
Plus, also, that's one of the things that kind of I guess I need to work on. I don't know, but in the podcast in particular, I don't have as much control over it. Obviously, in my videos, I write every word, and I record every word, and I edit every word, and then I post it. And so I have complete control over the way things are said and everything that goes in there. And I do often rewrite jokes because I'm like, it's funny, but I feel comfortable saying that, but I know that there are people out there that will get pissed off and upset about it. And I've even had instances in the past where I've written a joke that I thought was fairly edgy, but at the same time, it was kind of. I felt like it was okay. I was basically saying, like, there was this film that I looked at that was just so insanely impossible to understand that I wasn't autistic enough to be able to understand it. And that was kind of the way the joke was written. And I thought that I was like, yeah, it's a bit edgy, but it's okay. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying I'm dumb. I'm really dumb, and I need a much smarter, more capable brain to be able to deconstruct what's happening here, and I can't because I'm not autistic enough. And yeah, and still, I had people firing off in the comments, being like, "Ma, why are you trying to glorify autism? It's actually it's like, yeah, I fucking know, I don't think it's amazing. But did I say it was bad? Did I call like no?
Wait, can I just say I'm probably going to use this as a highlight thumbnail. Can I put in the thumbnail? I'm not autistic enough. That's the
No.
clip. Ah.
Please don't make me that guy. But like, and so there've been so many times where I've written a joke, I've even recorded it, and then been like, nah, I can't say that. That's gonna piss people off. So I do a lot of self censorship. But I'm a fucking human being. I'm not flawless. I'm not perfect. I
Mm.
probably have some opinions that definitely need some work. I probably even have some unconscious prejudices that need working on and like ironing out. Like I'm not a fucking saint. I think everyone is the same.
Mm.
In that respect, everyone has these kind of slightly wrong knee-jerk reactions to things that need to kind of you need to sort yourself out.
Yeah.
But when we're in the kind of the podcast format, like live talking, we go off on these weird tangents, and we're talking about very silly, stupid things, and often the conversation gets to like pooing or Nazis or pedos
Yeah.
or just stupid dumb shit that friends joke about. And there are often times where a guest will say something or I will say something, and then immediately afterwards I'm like, fuck, why did I say that? It's not even that funny. It's not clever, and all it is just offensive. You've just said an offensive thing, and you've probably pissed off a bunch of people, and you probably upset someone. Why have you done that? And it's really difficult. Like I'd like to be better at it, but when you're in the moment and you're trying to think on your feet and say things you think might be funny, I misfire all the time, and I just say stupid shit, and I just regret it and wish I'd never ever did the podcast.
I get that. I get that very much. Yeah, and it's quite interesting. Like I think that's like a very important take you take there as well. Just sort of like this level of like self-reflectionism, where you sort of always sort of stepping on where you think like an appropriate like step to go, especially with like even like yourself as like I guess is like a public platform as well,
Yeah.
and worried about
It's
like
just difficult as well, especially talking with when Professor Tosspot's on the podcast.
yeah
He's a character, and his character is a very old man and some very old, outdated opinions on things, especially when it comes to war and like races and things like that. And so he has the room, I think, creatively to say things that aren't okay.
yeah.
But when you're trying to have a conversation with a character who is allowed to say stuff like that, it's very difficult
I guess
to bring it back round into the realms of acceptability without looking like an asshole yourself.
and I guess that's sort of maybe even for like your perspective, like that might sort of like blur the lines as well between like performance to like conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
And that might be sort of difficult because like you're not too sure if you're doing something like it may come across like less ironic than it should.